the women in today's gospel are going to anoint a corpse, and then they see the stone rolled away from the grave, and they think immediately someone has broken in, grave robbers. Well, then it dawns on them, someone has broken out, a resurrection. And then they, on entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a white robe, and they were utterly amazed. Well, last week at the Palm Sunday Mass, there was a young man following our Lord, wearing nothing but a linen cloth about his body. And they seized him, but he left the cloth behind and ran off naked. And that young man represented the baptized Christian, and the white cloth his baptismal garment of grace. And when danger approached, he runs off in fear, naked, leaving behind his baptismal garment of grace. In that moment of truth, sometimes we compromise our baptismal promises. Fear of human respect, fear of whatever. But in today's gospel, it's a different outcome. It's that young man who announces the resurrection, clothed in that white robe. And he's the symbol of perseverance, of faithfulness to our baptismal promises, overcoming fear and, like we say, remaining clothed in that white garment of God's grace. That reading from the Acts of the Apostles today said that we are his witnesses. We are witnesses to the resurrection. Like we said at the beginning, the resurrection is the gospel. Easter is the good news. Everything else is commentary. And we are his witnesses. I remember in the seminary, one of the seminarians said that his nephew on Easter Sunday morning ran up to his grandmother and said, "He's alive, he's alive, he's alive." And she said, "Who's alive?" And he said, "Jesus." And, after 2,000 years, we lose our enthusiasm over the resurrection. Okay? But it's kind of that earth-shaking event that changes all of creation and of human history. Especially like in a world where truth seems to be losing out. Evil seems to be way out ahead in the game. Virtue takes a licking. Humility is ridiculed. Virginity is mocked. Self-sacrifice is spit at. But when time runs out, Easter reminds us that God is eternally triumphant. Okay? That martyrdom is a crown. That crucifixion is kingship. Pride is folly. The world can only offer us fool's gold and false happiness. Pleasure is a miserable substitute for joy. When we look at the crucifix with eyes without faith, we see despair. But when we look at the crucifix with the eyes of faith, we see the resurrection. We see the victory. Again, the Nazis crucified priests and crowned them with barbed wire. Like, we are his witnesses in the world, witnesses to truth, witnesses that life wins out over death, good is forever victorious over evil. Fear of the cross is what makes us mediocre. Death is dethroned, death is undone, and like we said, that's earth-shattering. In fact, in the Gospel of St. Matthew, at the moment of the resurrection, an earthquake takes place. And that earthquake shows us that which you thought was certain before is now uncertain. Like in an earthquake, the very ground you walk on becomes liquid. It's no longer solid. It's fluid. Well, the very foundation of creation is shaken by the resurrection. So our Lord enters this world in order to engage the enemy. And on Good Friday, he stared down death. And on Easter Sunday, we celebrate that victory of the one who came to engage our enemy for us. Like we say, the doctor took the medicine and the patient was cured. Someone once complained to Abraham Lincoln about General Grant. They wanted to get rid of him. But Lincoln said, I can't spare him because he fights. Grant used to enter into close quarters with the enemy. He didn't fight from a distance, but he entered into the battle. And so that's what our Lord does for us. He enters into the engagement of evil, of sin, of death for us. And our lesson is that death does not have the final word. Evil may have its hour, but truth and goodness are eternally reigning. The victory of the powers of hell is short-lived. Jesus Christ is risen means life has overcome death. Our faith in the resurrection is that great light for all ages, for every society, and for each one of us. Today, the cross may still be our light, but one day we will also participate in that eternal victory of the resurrection.